Welcome everyone to Infinitely Productions. We are here in South Philadelphia in the Loyal Moyamensing neighborhood at 10th and Snyder, as you see specifically at the grocery store. As we walk down the street, we are walking at a piece of history. 934 Snyder will remain in the history books of Philadelphia. This right here, as you see, is the old footage of the house of Angelo Bruno. As you can see, it matches some of the color schemes of the row homes next to it, and it's the last row home before a 7-Eleven's approach. This is what Angelo Bruno's house looked like last year as of 2025. However, now it's gone through a remodeling change. As you will see here in the footage, that the different color schemes and the paint job has really renovated the house. As you see, it's much more a darker tone. The door has been renovated, and there's even a camera put in place on the side of the door. It's a red door with glass, and you can also see through the house. Even the side of the house has also been more dark tone, as we'll show you a side view of the house from a different angle. If you approach the 7-Layer area, across the street is the Federal Credit Union, and there is the parking lot that's always been there even during when Angelo Bruno was alive. It's been painted completely different than when it was back in the 1980s and before. We also have to superimpose our logo because there's other times where other different content creators have been superimposing their videos and removing our watermark. So you want to make sure, if you want to use our footage, you're more than welcome to. Just make sure you give credit where credit is due to the original content creators. Meanwhile, the steps and everything else has changed and has been completely remodeled, and it no longer looks exactly the way it has been. It is completely changed. When Angelo Bruno lost his life in 1980 during a power struggle, which we'll get into later, this became a history symbol of the House of Philadelphia. And from then on, his successor, Philip Testa, will be the new successor in the criminal underworld. However, his reign will end less than a year after Bruno's. So meanwhile, we're going to show you a comparison from the house of what it looked like then from our recent footage to what it looks like in today's 2026 footage, since the house has been remodeled. Now we're going to show you from Realtor's website to what the house is like inside the house, since none of us has ever gotten public footage of what Bruno's house has looked like since he's passed away. His daughter, his last surviving child, Jean Bruno, had still owned the property after Bruno's demise. His son, Michael Bruno, has already passed away several years ago, and Jean has been the last surviving child of Angelo Bruno that has been owning the house for several years. And now apparently she must have resold the home to a whole new owner. Now you can see the remaking model of what it looks like to be inside the house of 934 Snyder Avenue, the most famous home of Angelo Bruno, since this is where he lost his life at, right in front of his property. Now, Bruno had other different properties along the side of New Jersey, but we'll cover that in another story, and that's based on the FBI reports. Now we'll show you the interior of Angelo Bruno's house, from the entrance of the door, from the living rooms, the downstairs, the bedrooms, and other different areas of the house, as you can see here from the pictures that we'll show you from a slideshow. So as you can see, it has been very remodeled in today's time standards to how modern technology has been in place. Bedrooms, more hardwood floor, much more polished and renovated. Also, something they have the built-in TV against the wall. And there have been conflicting reports. Some reports from the realtor says that it has 4 bedrooms, and some sources says it's only been 3 bedrooms. You could also see how the bathroom and shower structures have also changed during the time. How the floor plan looks. And now you'll see from the exterior and the backyard of a 934 property. As you can see, it also has a fence as well. And now that will cover the story of Angelo Bruno's house from the exterior side. Now we'll show you the history of Angelo Bruno for those who are not familiar when Bruno lost his life on March 21st, 1980. He was 69 years old, and here's the story to what led up to Bruno's ultimate demise, seen here. The plan. Antonio Tony Bananas Capernegro, John Johnny Keys Simone, and many others in the Philadelphia crime family were becoming frustrated with the power of Angelo Bruno. When gambling became legalized, Bruno did not take advantage of the commercialism exclusively when he was still loyal to the Gambino crime family, despite the passing reasons. One of them was casino, gambling, we mentioned. Also, Angelo Bruno would not allow his own crime family members to get involved in the robust narcotics market. However, members of the Gambino crime family were into the drug trade and exchanged Bruno money that many people felt was drug money, and he would be a hypocrite towards his own community. Therefore, Johnny Keys Simone will collaborate with Capernegro to overthrow Angelo Bruno. In 1980, the 1970s were over, and the decade were unleashed a whole new rampage of violence and create a civil war within the crime family of Philadelphia, started with Angelo Bruno. Capernegro had been lining up to support in Philadelphia for a palace coup. He enlisted Frank Sedone, the Barracuda, John Johnny Keys Simone, and Alfred Salerno, Capernegro's brother-in-law, as willing participants in the conspiracy. Sedone, a longtime Bruno family soldier and one of the biggest loan sharks in Philadelphia, was to be the underboss of Capernegro's rebel regime. Behind Bruno's back and wishes, Capernegro decided to take business, and within another crime family was the Genovese. He approached the Genovese family boss Frank Thierry in order to seek the commission's permission to whack Angelo Bruno to take over the crime family. Thierry, sensing an opportunity to take over Capernegro's New Jersey gambling operation, set up an operation in Atlantic City. He lied to Capernegro and told him that he had the commission's support. Coup de grace. March 21st, 1980, John Johnny Keys Simone and Frank the Barracuda Sedone met with John Stanfa, also known as Giovanni's John Stanfa, in New York City. During this time, John Stanfa was a young Sicilian wise guy who Simone and Sedone recruited to replace regular driver Raymond Long John Mortorano and Mario Sonny Riccobini. The plan of a coup d'etat was set in motion. Angelo Bruno would have his last meal at Cuz's Little Italy with some of his friends. Many underworld observers believe Frank Sedone marked Angelo Bruno by giving him the symbolic kiss of death after he kissed Bruno's cheek before Bruno left the restaurant. Angelo Bruno and John Stanfa left the restaurant and prepared for Bruno's last ride. It was a dark, rainy night as John Stanfa was driving Angelo Bruno to his home at 934 Snyder Avenue in South Philadelphia. Before he was driven home, he and John Stanfa stopped at Broad and Snyder to get a newspaper, and Bruno would never expect anything unusual. The temperature was dropping and rain grew denser around 9:30 p.m. John Stanfa parks the car in the cold in front of Angelo Bruno's house as it grew colder. Two men behind the car would step out of the shadows. Angelo Bruno's window was lowered as he flicked his cigarette, and it would be the last thing he would ever do. A shooter loaded double-barrel shotgun and blasted Bruno in the back of his head by pulling both triggers simultaneously. The shooting would instantly take the life of the Godfather of Philadelphia. John Stanfa would be wounded from the pellets from the gunshot blast. The shooter and his accomplice fled the crime scene. John Stanfa will also do the same, leaving Angelo Bruno's corpse alone in the car. His mouth would gape wide open extremely as if he was screaming for help. The gruesome image of him became an iconic mob hit, especially since he was the Godfather of Philadelphia. The rain would stop and the neighborhood would wake from the gunshot blast noise, creating a pandemonium in South Philadelphia. Therefore, this night became a media circus, as you can see here.
We're all worked in. Never mind, Alex, if you're there.
It's an old man.
Alright, I'm all set. Now, I don't know where we're going to put
shot. But we're allowed to shoot. There's not much more to get here. We understand that there's a hospital in question that we should maybe go to. Yeah, now, just make sure that you leave the earpiece in the box.
Mark has it already.
Isn't that his brother then?
That Watson over there?
What happened?
This is the wrong end. What do you mean? I need a double mail. Here, look, I'll show you.
What, coming out of what?
Coming out of microwave? Get the shots, I guess.
I have a car!
There you go.
Cover the car!
Watch. Mark! Bring him out, Ken.
Yeah, I can get it.
There it is. There it is. You got to move?
Yeah, we're covered.
There you go.
Let's move. Moving. Come on. Right on. Go ahead. Stay. You got it, Bobby. Bobby, come on.
Hey, Charlie.
Excuse me, sir. Then we go to Cousins, man. Cousins.
That's a good fight, too.
What?
I'll just tell you something. I lost the husband. I'm going to tell the police made a circus of this. I think it's a shame. 2 hours.
That's got the clear fight. Push 100. Where's Bruno's candy store, bro?
I have no idea.
One of these places is, right?
I think.
According to several law enforcers, Angelo Bruno traveled around the country settling disputes among the mafia organization. He was a man known to often overrule violence. His Philadelphia family was reportedly into loan sharking and gambling, apparently avoiding drug trafficking and prostitution. Because of his reign of peace, many were shocked by his slaying, especially attorney Jacob Kosman, a longtime friend and legal advisor to Bruno. Bruno was under almost constant indictment by law enforcers in South Jersey and Philadelphia. Just last week, he went before the closed-door New Jersey State Commission of Investigation. Just last night, Kosman and Bruno dined together at Cuz's restaurant in South Philadelphia. Kosman left early, leaving his friend for the last time.
Do you think it's connected with the SCI investigation?
No. The SCI investigation was practically over already. Practically over.
Did people wonder, so it didn't have anything to do with him talking, or people worrying?
No, not the slightest.
What do you think?
I don't know.
Did he express any nervousness last night?
Nervous last night? He was only nervous when he thought I was going to eat some of his macaroni.
Sharing Kosman's shock were the neighbors of the reputed mob leader, who watched today as crowds of friends and relatives dropped by the Snyder Street home to give their sympathy to Bruno's wife, son, and daughter.
I was just totally shocked. I never believed that anything like this would happen to Angelo.
Why not?
Marvelous person, I thought. He always a gentleman, always had a kind word. I just can't say enough good about him, really.
Do you think he was tied to organized crime?
Well, I couldn't say yes or no. I don't know if he was or not. As far as I'm concerned, I knew him as he was. Perfect gentleman.
Throughout the day, hundreds of people have driven slowly by the house, anxious to get a first-hand look at where Philadelphia's Godfather lived. One woman made note of the address, 934. She said she wanted to play the number. I'm Mary Ellen Gallagher, Channel 6 Action News in South Philadelphia.
In this video, we'll be going over the residence of Philip the Chicken Man Testa and Salvatore Salvi Testa. For those who don't know, Philip Charles Testa was the underboss of the Philadelphia crime family during the Angelo Bruno era. Angelo Bruno was the reigning godfather from 1958 till 1980. On March 21st, 1980, the godfather of Philadelphia, Angelo Bruno, will be gunned down in front of his home, ending his 22-year reign as the supreme leader of the criminal underworld. Many suspect that his consigliere, Antonio Tony Bananas Capernegro, would be the gunman, and if he wasn't, he was the one who definitely put the hit out on his boss. Purpose of Antonio Bananas Capernegro was to become the boss himself, thinking if he got the support from the Genovese, Frank Frunzi Thierry, that he would be the godfather of Philadelphia. It was all over a power struggle, and then Capernegro thought he would get the rings. However, that did not work in his favor. Instead, Capernegro will be stabbed, beaten, tortured by the Genovese crime family soldiers and be left in the trunk of a car. Meanwhile, Angelo Bruno's natural successor, Philip Testa, will become the new godfather of the city of Philadelphia. He was appointed by the bosses of the five families, known as the Commission, which is held by Frank Frunzi Thierry, Anthony Fat Tony Salerno, and Vincent the Chin Gigante. Testa would make Nicodemo, Lil Nicky Scarfo, his consigliere, and he will reign as the new boss of the city of Philadelphia. One of the key factors of Testa's reign was that he would take care of all the suspects that were involved in Angelo Bruno's death. Within the year, many people were taken out of the picture, such as Antonio Bananas Capernegro for starters, Frank Sindone, Johnny Keys Simone, who was Angelo Bruno's cousin. However, he sought another power struggle that would ultimately get him killed by Sammy the Bull Gravano, and the trigger man, Louis Melito. There will be many other victims that will fall into the hands of the crime family as a result of taking out of Angelo Bruno without the permission of the Commission. Any boss or any crime family member that is ever killed without the sanction of the Commission will be put to death, and that's exactly what took place. Meanwhile, while Testa was still the reigning godfather of his era, many also were aware that he had children. He had a daughter named Maria, who was not involved in the crime family whatsoever. She had her own legitimate business. And he had a son, Salvi Testa, which many people looked as the real mafia prince, as opposed to the title that Philip Leonetti had named in his book, since he was the son of the reigning godfather, Philip Testa. Salvi Testa will also rise in the ranks in the Philadelphia crime family as well. As opposed to attending Temple University, he will want to be just like his father. He knew the street life. He was born in South Philadelphia, growing up in 9th and Catherine, and moved to many different locations along with his father. However, at the address of 2117 Porter Street will be a life-changing experience for not just Salvi Testa, but his father. However, just like Angelo Bruno, Testa's assassins will be plotting on his murder. Rocco Marinucci will be one of those assailants. He worked as Peter Casella's chauffeur and bodyguard within the Philadelphia crime family. and he was recruited into the conspiracy to whack Philip Testa. On March 15, 1981, Philip Testa's life would change forever. He left his car double parked in the middle of the street in front of his house. Across the street from the Testa's double parked car was a black Volkswagen van. Inside the van sat Rocco Marinucci. As Testa's foot hit the front porch, Marinucci pushed the switch on a remote-controlled detonator. Testa's reign as a mob boss ended in the blast that followed. Most likely he didn't feel a thing. The explosion happened in an instant. As Testa reached for his front doorknob, Marinucci pushed a button and he blew the chicken man into oblivion. Reverberations from the blast registered for miles. A bomb packed with nails and explosive erupted from under the porch where had been a hidden rocking homes and store within a 12-block area. Lights began to flick on and up and down the streets as neighbors rushed to find out what happened. For many, their first thought was there had been an explosion at the oil refinery tank from the farm nearby Southwest Philadelphia. Testa was killed less than a year of Angelo Bruno. In fact, it was almost close to the 1-year anniversary. The city of Philadelphia will lose 2 Godfathers in less than a year, and it will create so much friction within the family itself that it's becoming more chaotic, and therefore there's no stable relationship amongst the parties. Meanwhile, in South Philadelphia, Salvi Testa, along with his sister Maria, had mourned the loss of their father. As you can see, this is one of the only photos that we have of Maria Testa as a result of the tragedy of losing her father. She and her brother had to arrange Testa's funeral and wake. They've already had lost their mother to cancer, and now they have to bury their father within the next year. Meanwhile, they also had to get their house repaired. As you can see, it was blown to bits in the year 1981. However, it will be reconstructed still during the early 1980s, and it still stands today. So, for those who are not familiar with this region of South Philadelphia, we would take you to their original home. And the reason how we're certain this was the original house of Philip Testa and Salvatore Testa is because if you look at the mugshot from Philip Testa's print, you can see that his address was listed there, which was very common since it's the precursor of the internet. He specifically lived on 10th and 12 Carpenter Street. He was listed for his crime as a common gambler. He was 43 years old at the time, stood 5'8", weighed 183 pounds, had brown eyes, brown hair, and was built well, stocked. And as we could put the car, we'll show you up more closer. As you can see, the Philip C. Testa, the C will stand for Charles, as we have based on his record. And now, since we have shown you the resident from the mugshot, we will show you the park and the region so you can get the vibe of the whole South Philadelphia nature. And from our stabilizer, here is the footage of the original home of Philip Testa and his son Salvatore Testa. Don't forget that also before both of these men tragically lost their lives, Philip Testa was married to Althea, or simply Althea Testa. She would later lose her life to cancer before Testa lost his life in 1981. The only surviving member of the Testa family is Salvi Testa's sister Maria, which you may have seen from some of our photos that we have listed here. And after many years, since it's been since the 1980s, 40 years later, this is what the house currently looks like in real time in the year of 2024. Of course, since this is private property, we cannot show you what's in the inside. However, based on the photos on Realtor, this is what you may see if you was to enter the property. So we will show you what Porter Street house looks like today as it looked back then, so you can see their own comparisons. This concludes our video on the Testa home. Now we will show you from what it may look like on the inside based on this website, so you can have the visualization of what it did look like today. And now you will see a vision of what it looks like today. If you have any suggestions, please let us know in the comments on what other house or public figure that we should cover. We would gladly appreciate your feedback. Thank you for your time. Nicodemo, Lil Nicky Scarfo, has lived in many different areas within the United States, especially along the East Coast. He is very infamous for being the rising mob boss who eventually took over the reins of the Philadelphia's crime family in the year of 1981 to 1990. He infamously gained a reputation for also owning properties along the famous boarding house along the side of this. Here's his residence that originally belonged to his mother from 26th and 28th North Georgia Avenue. Then he had a property called Casablanca South in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, once he was in the big leagues of Costa Nostra as boss of the family. Many people don't know that Nicky Scarfo's house in Philadelphia still exists to this day and is also one of the homes that still survives since he passed in the year of 2017. Let's take you back to the origins of little Nicky Scarfo. As you can see in this Wikipedia page, here's the early life of Nicky Scarfo, and of course you can see this across many different sources besides Wikipedia. Nicky Scarfo was born on March 8, 1929 in Brooklyn, New York, to Philip and Catherine Scarfo, Italian immigrants from Naples and Calabria. At the age of 12, Scarfo and his family moved to South Philadelphia, where he worked as a day laborer and later graduated from Benjamin Franklin High School in 1947. He became an amateur boxer, fighting in the small clubs throughout Philadelphia, earning himself a reputation for his aggressive temper in the ring. After failing to become a success in the boxing world, Scarfo joined his uncle, Nicky Buck, a Philly mob soldier, in illegal activities in Philadelphia. He also worked as a bartender at a club owned by his uncle while being an apprentice by Buck alongside his two other uncles. So let's explain this little article from the Wikipedia page. While they do have that Nicky Scarfo had moved to Philadelphia at the age of 12, that would be the year of 1941 if he was 12 years old and he was born in 1929. However, we actually found an article that proves that he was living in Philadelphia a little bit much earlier, especially based on the United States federal census. Now, it is true Nicky Scarfo was born to Italian immigrants from Calabria and Naples. His father, Philip Scarfo, actually has a census that dates back in 1940, a year earlier before 1941. Phil Scarfo was 37 years old, the head of the household at the time, which is very common for many males of that era. But in 1940, he's listed as 37. His wife, Nicky's mother, Catherine Scarfo, was listed at the age of 30. Nicky Scarfo at the age of 11. And Nancy Scarfo at the age of 9. Now, during this time, especially during the early 1940s and 1950s, many Italian immigrants, when they moved along the United States, along with many other European immigrants, many of them would have to change their name to many more English or westernized names to assimilate and integrate in the United States culture. So, for example, instead of Nicodemo Scarfo, Nicky Scarfo will be known as Nicholas Scarfo. Catherine Scarfo, who was already born within the United States, however, their daughter, Annunziata Scarfo, will be changed to Nancy Scarfo, just as Nicky Scarfo comes from the name of Nicodemo. We also have a 1950 United States federal census for Nancy Scarfo, and you can see how their occupations changed as a decade later. Philip Scarfo was still the head of the household, and he still worked along as a shoreman. The matriarch, Catherine Scarfo, was the housewife, and it shows that she did not work under any specific positions. However, Philip Scarfo is listed as a laborer. Nicholas Scarfo, who we know to be as Little Nicky, as you can see, was listed differently because Catherine Scarfo was born in Pennsylvania, so she was already integrated to the United States culture, whereas though Nicky's father was directly from Italy. And Nancy Scarfo, who was a few years younger than Nicky Scarfo is listed at the age of 21. She is listed at the age of 19. Both of them were born in New York, and she will work as a chief secretary. She worked for at least 40 hours, just as her father did. She'll work alongside the hotel. We don't know what specific hotel region that was, but it's also similar to how Philip Scarfo, when he once lived in New York and New Jersey, he would work for certain hotels along the ocean shore. However, Nicky Scarfo does not have an occupation listed at the age of 21. Could it also be due to the rumors and allegations that's been brought against him since he was young that he worked along his uncles, who was on his maternal side? Philip Scarfo was not tied to any organized crime whatsoever. There has never been no evidence or any conclusive ones in that matter. However, Nicky Scarfo has been reported to have resentment towards his father, especially coming from his nephew, Crazy Philip Leonetti, who will one day be the future underboss in the Philadelphia organized crime. He stated in his book Mafia Press that Nicky Scarfo resented his father because he had no ties to organized crime, and he thinks if you worked a normal job, you were considered a jerk-off. Or just a no-good person. However, on Nicky Scarfo's maternal side, also known as the mother's side, his uncles, along with Mikey Buck, Nicky Buck, and Tony Buck, also known as the Piccolo brothers, had ties to criminal organizations. They will all move and do business activities alongside the tri-state area, which are tied to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. And this will also be the rise tide of Nicky Scarfo's criminal activities. He will also meet his mentor, Felix Skinny Razor DiTullio. He will also meet other different rising stars of the criminal underworld. It all started right here in the center of Philadelphia, and many people don't know that the property that Nicky Scarfo resided during the times of when he started his own criminal activity started along this address, in which we will show you from the 1940 census, and you could also see is the same address. The 1950 census is listed on 744 Warnock Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is not too far from the Philadelphia Italian Market neighborhood. In fact, it's just a few blocks from the whole market region. The zip code is specifically 19147. In fact, we could also show you how it does look in the Nicky Scarfo era during that time. As you can see, Nicky Scarfo is dressed as a gangster suit during this time. He loved to dress he was very concerned about his image, and he loved the gangster movie genre. He also loved the actor Paul Mooney, which was one of his favorite actors starring in the original Scarface film. Not to be mistaken the one that stars Al Pacino. You could also hear this confirmation here from Crazy Phil Leonetti himself on Patrick Bet David's episode with him listed here.
Paul Mooney.
Was that his inspiration?
That's it. That's the man.
That's his hero. That's the guy he wanted to be.
That's the guy he was. Yeah.
Out in the public. Make an example.
That's it. Just keep killing. You got to keep killing. Got to do this, he says, and you got to keep doing it. Okay.
Here's a photo of Nicky Scarfo dressed as the people that he idolized in front of this property, as you can see at Warnock Street during this era. And now we will show you what the property looks like today. As of course you know, this is definitely in the year of 2024. This is an exclusive video coming from our own productions. So we want to make sure that we keep the property because sometimes our footage has been reduplicated without our authorizations. If anyone wants the watermark to be removed, they can have our consent. Just make sure they email us at the appropriate email address, and we can also notify any grants or changes. And there you have it. This is one of the only surviving homes of Nicky Scarfo when he lived in Philadelphia. We showed you the proof that he lived here during the 1940s and 50s based on the Census Bureau. We also showed you from Philip Leonetti's Mafia prints that this was the property that he once lived in Philadelphia, of him posing as gangsters and then he one day become one, and all the other properties that Nicky Scarfo has lived outside of Philadelphia. That includes his Atlantic City property and the home in Fort Lauderdale. You can check those videos, or you can also watch the compilation of the videos of all the properties that we have of Nicky Scarfo. If you have any suggestions or any other homes of any other Kosher Nostrum member, or for any properties that we have missed out, please let us know in the comments below, and we'd like to hear your feedback. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.